Okay, so it's going to be a very exciting unboxing today. We're going to have the usual Rolex AP, blah, 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 although not so regular AP, but we also have a whole bag dedicated to our boy Marco. Lots of cool semi-vintage, would you call them, watches today, so stay tuned. We're going to start with some usual suspects, give you a couple of market updates courtesy of little Alex. And we're going to start. What's that?
Sky-Dweller white dial.
Oh, it is. Sky-Dweller white dial, reference number?
326.
934.
934. Talk to me about market price today on this. Is
so something like this, I mean, you're going to be picking up under 20 most definitely. Maybe even in like the 18 to 19 range. Just depends on condition, year, box papers. But these are really good values. The Sky-Dweller overall, it's a big watch to have.
I mean, the white dials and the black dials, they went up to about 30 grand, right, in the high market.
Yeah.
So, you know, Sky-Dweller is one of the models that took like the biggest lick, but yet it's still.
And to think about it, you're picking up one of the highest complicated.
Well, currently the highest complicated.
Yeah, the most.
Rolex for under 20K, which is something that like a Starbucks is trading for, you know?
I love it too because it's so reminiscent kind of like, it's like the steel Day-Date of sorts, right? It's like if you don't want all gold or you can't afford white gold, maybe you go for a Sky-Dweller. It's a perfect alternative.
Yeah, there is no steel Day-Date, so there you have it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the two-tone Rootbeer, another one that was high and mighty. This thing went up to the low 30s.
30 grand, yeah.
And where's it at now?
This is sitting like just under 22,000, 21,000.
Again, now we say.
But it also depends on condition. You can pick these up as low as like 18,000.
Right. Again, these all vary depending on year, condition. You know.
But
I'm giving like brand new prices.
But the thing of it is what I like to see is the fact that the market has come down to earth rather than took a dump, because some of the prices were just outrageous. Yet all of these Rolexes are still trading way over list.
We're back to where we were before the whole boom, right around like Christmas time.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what natural market price.
Back to normal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not so normal because some of these drops are pretty significant. They're 30, 40% drops. So that's pretty significant. Let's talk about this guy.
These are.
It's a 216.
These are really great pickups, whether it's 216 or 226.
This is a 226,
full stick
right?
or two.
This is a fully stick.
216.
This is a 216.
Yeah.
But these went as high as like 15,000, 14,000.
But I feel like these are not I feel like these watches were not they were pretty steady. Like they didn't go up like super crazy and they didn't go down super crazy.
So interesting thing actually about this watch is in the GMT, they usually use the caliber 3186. This version 216 is the only one with the caliber 3187. So potential future collectible, only one of its kind that uses that movement.
What is this?
Ooh, that's pretty.
For the ladies.
I guess nobody knows the reference number on this one.
This is 1742 something.
I have no idea.
It's a 1742 something.
It's a ladies' Datejust.
278, 273.
So we got to talk about this in a different manner because these are not watches these are watches that all of a sudden became unavailable when the hype happened. Before, in good old days, before your times, a 28 or a 31 millimeter Rolex is something that can call 10 ADs on and get like 25, 30 off on. And that became impossible during the hype, and it's still impossible because people are picking up every Rolex that's out there. Because right now you walk to some of these boutiques and this may be the only watch that's available there. But honestly, not every lady wants to wear a big watch. This is a good size. At the end of the day, aesthetically, size is somewhat irrelevant on Rolexes, especially ladies' Rolexes. It's just the overall look of the watch. It's a good looking watch. I think that's it for Rolex. Let's go to Marco's favorite brand, Vacheron. Or
How do you say it, Marco?
how do you say it properly?
Vacheron Constantin.
Vacheron Constantin. Can you do that? I can't do that. So I know what this watch is because I bought it. This is part of the Historique lineup.
Which is the best lineup in my opinion, or one of the best lineups in all of watches.
You know, it's funny. Everybody wants the overseas from Vacheron, but if you ask me and you put a gun to my head and said, "Hey, Roman, you know, what's the one Vacheron that you want?" It would not be from the overseas lines. It would be from the complicated, like in the likes of that Tourbillon that we received.
Oh yeah.
It would be. I do like the Historique line. Now, the original one was actually. Well, let me show you this guy.
This is their Harmony, I believe. It's their square.
This is the dual time.
Yeah, Harmony dual time. I mean, what more to say? It's a white gold watch, trading well under retail. You can get them for great discounts. In my opinion, it's just a perfect design. Like,
It's got a nice weight to it too.
yeah, and it's a great everyday watch. You could wear that every single day.
Now, just for those that don't know, so when they launched the Historique line, they started with the Historique 1921, where the dial was offset by what? How many degrees? I think it was offset by 45 degrees. I think so. Basically, 12 o'clock was here, right about here. And the reason for that was because it was a watch that you could, at a glance, as you're driving, are able to look at the time. So basically, as you wear a watch, if you imagine you being a race driver and you're holding a steering wheel this way, 12 o'clock is back this way. So they made it here so that at a glance, as you're driving, you can see it. Let's go to, these are kind of special, but I'm gonna start with a Journe. Now, this is their Octosport line and made out of full aluminum. And what else, Alex?
So this one is Journe's first, this is their first entry into the sport lineup of watches. This one features 120-hour power reserve, but in reality it's 7 days. Marco can kind of tell you
so officially it's listed as 120 hours or 5 days, but FP Journe is on record himself saying the power reserve is officially closer to 7. The reason that he lists it at 120 hours is to force people to wind the watch, because at like the last 2 days there's a huge amplitude drop off which affects the accuracy of the watch, so he wants people to keep the watch constantly wound.
In lamest terms, I mean, if you can imagine the mainspring fully wound, right? As it unwinds, eventually we'll start losing torque or power, let's say, right? So towards like the last days of the power reserve, the watch becomes less accurate, and that's one way to force the user to actually wind that watch 5 days into the power reserve, so, which is kind of cool. All right, so we always have to have something special, and this is the Purple Monster. This is the part where it says pause.
The Purple Monster.
The Purple Monster. And by Purple Monster, we obviously mean the purple.
26239 frosted. 26239 BC frosted purple.
All right, so when this watch first came out, my initial reaction was like, what in the hell, and who the hell is gonna buy this watch? And it sold through the roof, impossible to find. In fact, Anna's been looking for one for like 2 months to try to fill an order for a client. She could not find one. So finally one came across our desk. I mean, these things are still trading in the $250,000 price range. They haven't really suffered any, I mean, people were asking more for them in the higher market. I don't know if they were necessarily selling for 3+.
They were.
What was the highest? I think the highest
I sold one, I think, was like 330.
Yeah, I've seen 350 plus online as well. Yeah.
Well, online doesn't really, but I think they've sold around that 300.
Realistically, it's like 315 to 330 is where they were selling.
But the thing with this watch is, it's if you actually have it, you can still ask that number because you can't go out there and get another one. It's not like they're readily available, and that's really, again, the finish on the watch, the frosted finish is literally a process where, imagine, well, it wasn't like that, but imagine somebody taking a needle and literally poking a bunch of holes in the metal. And over time, my first reaction was, holy shit, this thing is gonna scratch, it's gonna get beat up. It's not as easily beat up or scratched up. We've had a couple of, this is a pre-owned piece, and the frosted stays intact. So now we're gonna get, now we're gonna get to the Marco bag, but before I do, guys, remember I always said, practice what you preach. There is a couple of day-dates in here. One of them with an interesting dial.
Is it Miri?
I certainly practice what we preach, Roman.
Yeah, no, you wear one. So this I don't think this is the Myriad dial.
Or it's close to a Miri.
So this, again, I like to pick up datas. I like to pick them up with papers, as I always do. I like to pick them up, clean with a fairly tight bracelet. I mean, this watch is from,
We're probably 80s.
W serial.
Let's admire the patina on this one, actually. It's actually really nice.
And patina is actually a good thing, and the reason for that is because that means this watch hasn't been touched, molested, polished, or anything like that. It just kind of sat. That's how you get that patina on the gold, and I tend not to remove that. Most people want to wipe it off, polish it off. I tend not to remove it because I think it adds to the overall aesthetic. And this is just a regular diamond dial. So, but this dial is a little bit more special, and this watch is from 1998.
Birth year. Someone.
Yeah.
So again, outside of picking up day-dates, I look for good shape. I look for properly working watches, but I also look for special dials. And the reason I do that is because they make less. It's that simple. All right, so now let's get to the Marco bag. And the Marco bag is going to have the godfather of watchmaking, as he's sometimes referred to, and that is one of, and that's Mr. Louis Breguet. So I'm gonna line them up. Right? I'm just going to line them up, and I'm going to let Marco just go ham on these.
I'll start with this one just because it is a Daniel Roth.
That's a Daniel Roth.
Yeah, so
much for Breguet.
Yeah. Well, it'll kind of tie in. So Daniel Roth today is one of the very best independent watchmakers, or recognized as one of the best. And he really rose to prominence for his work at Breguet, but he also did a brand when he left. I think it was like 85, maybe a little bit later. This is the Daniel Roth Metropolitan World Timer. Really interesting kind of ellipse case shape, almost like the Patek ellipse itself. And again, really interesting complication from an independent watchmaker. I think Daniel Roth is right up there, especially for like these kind of watches, with Moser as like a best first independent watch, just because the price point is very accessible. And again, you get something from one of the best watchmakers in the world. And this is really where he became famous and where he had his bread and butter, which is at Breguet under the Chaumet family, which was, you know, tremendous for the brand. It's really when I feel they made the best watches. You get, you know, watches like these, which is the 3580, watches like this, which is the 3137, I believe.
Look at the back.
Look at this.
I knew he was going to say that.
It's all freehand engraved, right? So we're talking about one person engraving, you know, like a movement like this, which takes an incredible amount of time. And you have to think about like the thought process, right? You can't just like wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to engrave this movement, right? Because if you mess it up, you have to restart from the beginning, right? So like this is just so much work and effort that goes into these watches. And again, with Breguet, something that's so lost is the cases too, right? I can't say enough. Cold rolled edges, soldered on lugs. It's just not made like this today anymore. So this is, I think, the most beautiful as well. I mean, just look at the balance, the symmetry of this. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Absolutely incredible.
Here's a nifty little thing here for you. So the strap actually has the setting tool. You can take this on and off. A lot of people actually keep it on and wear it with it, which actually makes it for a cool look. I guess just finish up the other two.
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple.
This
is a triple calendar, and this is kind of the same complication, just in a different format.
Well, this is a newer watch. This is the predecessor.
Yes, this is the predecessor. Yeah. But same kind of idea, moon phase, power reserves, and a date wheel as well.
So the overall theme on this, I can pick a few words to say. Number one, sleepers, right? Some of these older Breguet are becoming more and more collectible because people are understanding the value behind what's in this watch, be it hand engraved, be it complications, be it finishes, be it the case, be it the name. Let's start there.
Yeah.
And to go back to Daniel Roth is another one that's becoming super collectible. If you think about it, when he opened up his own company after Breguet, he had a really short run up until 2000.
Yeah, when he was acquired by Bulgari, right?
I think 6 is when Bulgari acquired them, right? Mm-hmm. And now you still have more or less those same watches from Bulgari, except they're not Daniel Roth. But guys, overall, I'm going to conclude it with this. We talked about Rolex and Rolex market a little bit that I feel has already stabilized, and I feel that we may see a push up even a little bit come the busier month.
You got to take advantage of good deals when they come across, right? I'm not a watch trader. I don't believe in investing in watches, right? But Warren Buffett always says, like, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, right? And I mean, it just says it now, right? Look at, for example, in COVID, you were super successful. You were one of the main guys saying, you know, keep buying watches. This is just a temporary hiccup. You know, everything's going to be back. And look at now, the market's starting to stabilize.
I mean,
people are taking advantage
and people
of deals.
think that we took huge advantage of it. Oh my God, they must have made so much money because they weren't afraid to buy when the market was down. You guys have to understand the amount of watches that we actually trade on a daily basis, right?
Nothing stays.
If we're averaging upwards of 15 million a month, it just keeps going. It just trades at a different price, right? But with stuff like this, I will always be a buyer. But the problem is I managed this to last week. I managed to come across a deal where I managed to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Breguets. This doesn't happen every day. The next time this may happen maybe 2 years from now. When the dip happened 3 months ago, what did we do? We started actively buying and buying more, because at the end of the day, there's still value in these things. Yes, market may fluctuate. And the initial dip was a dramatic one because the rise was pretty dramatic.
But again, these never experience that kind of price volatility, right? These are always what I call stable rise. You're going to get them.
But I probably paid what I would normally pay for these. I probably paid a good 30 to 35% more than I would, let's say, 3-4 years ago, because everything rises with time, right? Just like you know, a simple cheap car that was 12,000 new 5 years ago today is going to be 15, 16, right? I'm just going to say this: nobody's here to talk you into buying stuff like this. I'm here to provide information. We had this argument about this whole sleeper situation, and people were screaming at me like, oh my God, this is bullshit, this is a sales technique. It's not. I can give you, go back to my What's on My Desk videos from 3 years ago where I talked about sleepers that were trading around the $10,000 price range, and those watches are, after the dip, are in the mid-20s. The 36 millimeter Royal Oaks come to mind. The Owl, the Day-Dates, and all that stuff. They're all trading. They're all trading $20,000 to $30,000, and those were watches that were at the time were selling for $10,000 to $12,000, right? And this was 3 years ago, not even, right? So when I say these things, I say these based on my knowledge, but don't buy them because I said that these things may go up in value $10,000. The only reason I would ever want anybody to buy this Breguet is because you can appreciate it for what it is. And that's everything we just talked about. And I think we're going to wrap that up. So, guys, YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and we'll be back on the next edition of Geraldo. No, that's the wrong show. We'll be back on the next unboxing.